Good morning, my YouTube channel subscribers. I wanted to make a short video today. We're out here in beautiful St. Helens, Oregon. Sold my house in Portland about a year and a half ago. So no more E85 STI garage. But this is the first video I'll be making. Maybe I'll do a series, maybe not. Most people like pictures, so I have my put photo pictures up at putphoto.com/STI2NR. But anyhow, this is the most snow I've ever seen in Portland or anywhere else. We got about 10 inches of snow. It's about maybe 20 degrees right now. But I want to make a video because I learned something about Subarus and just vehicles in general. Trying to track down a low voltage problem that I was having with Yeti. The ROM Raider logger would show 14.5 volts, but I have a gauge hooked up to the battery itself, and it would only read 14.5 at the beginning. And then you go drive around and eventually it'd get down to like 11.7 volts and the motor would just about die. So scratching my head, did some testing, and I wanted to share that information with you guys. I'll kind of show you what I ended up doing. So I don't know if you can see this, but from the factory, this right here, I believe that's connected to your injectors, because if you remove it with the engine running, the engine will stop. So I did the big 3 upgrade. Well, I guess you could say big 4 because I do a dual battery, but I'm going to show you a little bit about how that system works. So as far as grounds go, I added supplementary grounds, which are what solved my low voltage problem at my alternator. Now this alternator is it's the 130 amp OEM alternator that come on 3.6 liter Subarus. Yes, it does bolt directly up. You don't have to make any modifications whatsoever. The only difference is the pulley has 6 grooves. You just use the inner 5 grooves for the belt. This would be an equivalent of an 05 STI motor, if that makes a difference for you guys. Anyhow, so for my dual battery system, I have this is a 500 amp, which is kind of overkill, solid state relay Stinger battery isolator. So what happens is I have a switch inside the car that I leave in the on position, but it only gets power when the key is in the ignition, so it's kind of an override, and you can actually turn it off. And what that does is that connects the front and the rear batteries. So I've got a Optima yellow top here, and then if we go around to the back here, I'll show you. And I need to redo the battery terminals and whatnot on these, so this is not like the final product. Well, is anything that I do a final product? But I built this cage and mounted it up inside some spare space that I had on the back here. And yes, that's my mortar ammo can. I store axles and whatnot in there. But I wanted to show this to you guys. And then I got the rear winch mounted, and man, that thing works really good. I've used it a couple times. So that's the rear battery, but go back up front here. And so they say the big 3 upgrade is when you run an alternator wire to your battery and run a couple extra grounds, one to the body and one to the motor. So how I did that is I originally only had this one going up to the tower, and I thought that was good enough, but I ended up adding this supplementary one this morning, or yesterday actually. I just redid it this morning and made it look a little bit better. But I was testing voltage on ROM Raider while I was driving around. It would show 14.5 volts, but the actual battery power, I actually have you know, a gauge hooked up directly to this battery here, I'll show you that in a minute, it would slowly just drain itself, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. So I got home and I just took like a test wire and connected it directly from the battery to like the intake manifold, and it arced and sparked, and then the battery voltage jumped up to 15 volts. So there was obviously a bad ground going from the intake manifold to the battery, and I don't know where the OEM ground is for that. It might still be there, it might not. I mean, I've pulled this motor several times. So anyhow, I do have this supplementary ground hooked up, and now this alternator actually puts out quite a bit of voltage. And after driving around for a little bit, it starts off at like maybe 15.5 volts, it's 15.2 volts, right around there. And after driving around for a bit, it balances itself out because of the heat and whatnot from the radiator to about 14.4 volts. So that's good, because these batteries need a lot of extra voltage to stay charged. One thing I wanted to show you guys is a little trick here. If you look inside here, there is a alternator signal wire, which is right here. It's a little 10 amp fuse. Pull that out, and what you get is a Zener diode, and you put it in its place. Now, what that does is it allows, or it forces the alternator to put out 0.7 more volts than it normally would, which is what you need for these Optima yellow tops to stay fully charged. They need a little bit more voltage. But yeah, that's just a little trick I learned. Zener diode, and if you put it in the wrong direction, your gauge cluster will show that your battery voltage is wrong, and so you'll have to just flip it around. So it's foolproof. Basically, it'll give you a bad signal from your gauge cluster if you don't do it the right way. So it's pretty easy install. You just bend the pins a little bit and shove them in there. Anyhow, I'll try to get this lid back on here correctly. There we go. That's better. So I'm going to start up the car and show you guys what the voltage should be. I'm going to get ROM Raider fired up here too. Let's see here. We'll get that started. Now, at rest, this is my battery voltage. This is just the front battery. That switch that's in the on position is for the isolator, but that won't connect both batteries until you put the key in the ignition and get it into start. Once you do that, then it's gonna give it's gonna connect both batteries, and the vehicle will have something like, I don't know, 1200 cold cranking amps. But anyhow, let's put the key in the ignition. That's in the ignition 1 position, and then we're gonna start it up. Now I'm on E85, and it's 20 degrees out, so this takes a couple tries. There it goes. Okay, we're at 15.1 volts. It might die one more time because it's really cold, and E85 does not like the cold. I have to adjust my map a little bit for that, widen the injector pulse on some of my cold cranking and warm-up tables, but maybe it'll stay on. Anyhow, we come up here and we look at ROM Raider logger. Look what we got for battery voltage. I don't know where the ECU reads battery voltage, but I mean, that's that compared to this, that's battery direct right there. And so you're seeing like 0.3 volts lower at the ECU. But anyhow, that's a sign of a good ground and good power coming from your alternator if you can get that going on. But like I said, once the motor warms up, that'll come down and to like 14.4 volts is what it was when I was driving around yesterday. So anyhow, this is just something I want to show you guys. Something I learned, a little lesson I learned. Hopefully it'll come in helpful for you guys when when you're doing the big 3. Big 4 if you do dual battery. But Yeti's pretty happy out in this comfortable temperature for her. She really likes the cold, so. Anyhow, I guess I'll catch you guys next time on my next video. I don't know what it'll be, but I'll try and come up with something. I'll try to post videos when I can, and hopefully they help you guys out. If you like it, and this is your first time here, please hit subscribe, and please share with your friends my YouTube channel. And you can also catch me on Instagram. It's very simple. It's just my name. It's at Sean Filner. It's SeanFillner. And like I said, hopefully this video helps somebody and you guys enjoy it. I'll catch you guys later. Bye-bye.